Carl and Damon here from Brrraaains A Head-Banging Life, gbhblofficial for short. And it's the big question, and we're kind of theming it a little around Halloween here, where we're going to spitball back and forth. The question is this: what are some of your scariest moments in gaming? Personal scary moments. Doesn't even have to be necessarily related to a specific horror game or that aspect, although naturally your mind goes there. Plus, when you ask that question, you almost automatically start thinking of the iconic scares and stuff like that that are expected to be defined as the scariest moments in gaming. But that might not necessarily apply to you personally. Like, for example, the dog jumping through the window at Resident Evil. Probably when I was younger. Now there's nothing. Aspects like that. These are the ones that kind of get referenced more than anything else. So I was intrigued to sort of, well, what scared you? Not necessarily, I mean, in the sense that you're sitting there shaking and all that, but either made you feel tense, made you feel uncomfortable, made you feel unhappy. That aspect, that's what I think via scares, more than just jump scares. How it made you feel in that regards. It's important. It's a link to like horror movies, you know. Nobody just wants to constantly be given jump, jump, jump. Yeah, of course. You want to be like, no, that's scary because that makes me feel incredibly uncomfortable. Aspects like that. Mm-hmm. So it's really just trolling your mind and thinking about, well, some of the experiences you've had in gaming over the years, over the many, many years, and going, okay, yeah, that one had an effect on me. So I'm actually going to dive in straight away. While it's one that jumped into my head, would one that actually could be called scary, and I think you'd probably find a lot of lists, but I'm going to go back to Bioshock here. The original Bioshock. There are a number of times in that where it does utilise jump scares or elements like that. But what I'm going to utilise specifically is early on in the game when you find, you get a lot of shadows related to spider splicers and stuff like that. But it's specifically to do with the pushchair. The pushchair. And then you turn around and it's just there right in your face. Mm-hmm. The splicers are standing there right in your fucking face. That is really fucking effective. Yeah, definitely. Enough so that when I replayed Bioshock, I think last year, with the HD remaster, or whatever that one was, the re-release, still fucking got me. Yeah, it's freak actually. I remember that scene. It's like the baby's crying in the and there's nothing in it, or doors in it, or something like that, and then you just turn around and it's there right in your face as you turn around. I want to tie as well into Bioshock as well, the entire section surrounding the doctor, the dentist, the plastic surgeon, sorry. That's horror on a very unique level. Yeah, definitely. So that's one that I think of the traditional ones, the ones that kind of get mentioned as scary moments, that I think still really, really works for me personally. But you? I'm going to go for I'll say an obvious one, but it's... I can't remember specifically which one it was, but it's obviously Resident Evil. Yep. I think it might have been Resident Evil 2, but I think it's the first time, or it might have been 3 actually. Go on. The first time you go for a door and you think you're safe, and then Hunk or Nemesis comes through after you. Right, it'd be Resident Evil 2, wouldn't it? It'd be Resident Evil 2. It was Hunk. It was the first one who could break through the walls. Yeah, not Hunk. Hunk's the guy. It's Mr. X. Mr. X. Mr. X is the Hunk. Back in the day, I remember there was a lot of confusion with that character being called Hunk. I think some people think he was called Hunk, but Hunk's the soldier, right? The soldier, Mr. X. He followed you through doors in the original. Yeah, I can't remember specifically when I first played that moment, but obviously just the fact that you always thought you were safe when you went to the room. Zombies can't go through, and then you move away from the door, and then you hear the door close, and then you hear them running. It was always a tense, very tense moment. Not so much scary, but I think it was a very tense moment. Right, stop. We're going to redo this bit. No, he did. I'm trying to think. He didn't follow you through doors. No, he didn't follow you through doors because Nemesis introduced that. That's what it was. The remake that brought him in. He would smash through walls in certain areas, but he never followed through doors. So redo it, but it was Resident Evil 3 with Nemesis. Okay, right. So we'll come in where I said. What about you? It's going to be an obvious one. Well, I said obvious one. It's obviously Resident Evil 3. So it's obviously Nemesis. The fact that he could chase you through rooms. Yeah. You know, you used to be able to go in a room and you think, I'm safe. Yep. But no, if he's chasing you, he's chasing you. He's coming for those walls and doors to get you. Yeah. I mean, that introduction of Resident Evil 3 was amazing. Real terrifying because it was, for me, I'm going to tie it into it, that one as well. But as well as that, Nemesis running at you. Mm-hmm. Because you were used to the Mr. X character slowly walking towards you. Yep. the Nemesis, when it would suddenly burst speed towards you, was a whole like, fuck, that's different. But yeah, you can even tie that into Resident Evil 2, I suppose, to a certain degree as well, because although it was scripted and it was only at certain parts, but when Mr. X smashed through certain walls, I'd argue Resident Evil 2 Remake did that better, because Mr. X would obviously follow you now into rooms and all that, and getting away from him was a lot harder. You could hear him walking around if you were below him in a room above you, and elements like that were really fucking well done.
Definitely.
But certainly, the first time Nemesis follows you into an area, like you move screens and I'm safe, and it's like, nope, he's still there.
Or you see him raise his rocket launcher and you think, oh crap, I've got to get behind the walls, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, what else we got? So, some other personal scary moments. I'm going to talk about the game Little Inferno here. Obviously, I've talked about this game in depth in the past. It's one of my favourite games, available on Steam and on your mobile phone. Do play it. It's a lovely HD version that will really brighten up it. If you've got an up-to-date phone, it looks amazing. So this isn't a scary game in that context, but I have talked about this before, about this game shifting tone at certain points from what seems like a very simple, relaxing, burn things in a fire to what? And how it made me feel. And it was the moment when I realised, holy shit, there's something much darker and deeper here. And it's when your neighbour talks about staring into the fire and wishing that to burn up in it so that she could escape through the chimney effectively. And the music changes to this very ominous, dark tone. And I was like, what the fuck? What the fuck? What the fuck? Like, it suddenly changed from this really light and... Oh, yeah, because she also adds in the face that's part of the fireplace. She says, that's not a face. I was like, the fuck is this? Like, now I started looking at that thing in a lot more creepy kind of thing. I'll tie that into, although it's a little, not necessarily scary, but I'll also tie that into the end. Not the end of the game, of course, but the part where you blow your house up, of spoilers, when you have to blow your house up effectively. And obviously part of that, and the fire and the jets of flames, and how the machinery starts to collapse around you, and that fucking face, eyes start to open. I was like, oh my god, what is happening?
It's not a game I played, but it's a game that's in my list to play, because you talk about it a lot, and obviously
it's one of my all-time favourite games. It's literally up there as one of my all-time favourite games, because it simply blew me away into what it did and the story it told, and how it chooses to completely subvert your expectations while being a ton of fun. Because the combinations of burning things and the story playing over that. But seriously, the tonal shifts in that game frightened me, because it's so unexpected. It was not what I thought. I was playing a simple mobile game, and then that happened.
Yep.
So you got another one?
It's more of like a three part actually. It's 3 parts in this game. It's obviously the original Silent Hill.
Oh yeah, of course.
So PS1. So for me, the first part, which it's the first time it turns from obviously to the dark side.
Yeah.
So you're in the little alleyway, you find a letter from your daughter or a picture from your daughter, and then you're trapped in the little alleyway, and there's obviously little weird creatures. It just like really, really freaking.
Yeah, I would agree with that, because that whole setup from when you first go down there. And bear in mind, at that point, we were sticking with the fixed cameras that we were used to with Resident Evil.
It turns, doesn't it?
But this one swinged and changed angle to follow you, and that was a difference straight away. That was quite unnerving. But yeah, I agree with you that the growing tension of that slow change there, because it's not as prominent and obvious as it is in other places.
And second part again, Silent Hill again for the first one, but it's a lot of scenes in the school.
Yep, the school definitely is up there.
Yeah. So obviously, I think there's a scene where you enter the bathroom, you can hear like a girl crying.
Yeah, we've talked about before in a tier list as being a really, really underrated, scary moment that people don't talk about enough with Silent Hill.
It's just so basic, but it's so creepy.
Yeah,
like someone crying in the toilet. You go to the toilet, there's no one there. I mean, obviously you have the little weird little baby. I don't know, the baby ghosts.
Yeah, but they're like weird. Yeah, they're around the hallways.
Yeah.
But I never found them frightening because they squeak.
Yeah, they make some weird noises.
Squeaking noise. So it's like, no, that just sounds weird. It sounds silly.
Yeah, and then obviously the last one for it is the hospital, because then I mean the nurses, the way they move, I always found it really, really freaky, just the way they move, and they when it's around you, it is quite a tense moment.
Okay. I want to talk about Resident Evil as well, but I want to talk about Resident Evil 7. Resident Evil 7 in particular, and some of the scares that game had, I thought, it's one of the reasons why I think people loved it, it's why I ended up loving it as well, is that Resident Evil 7 has some of the finest effective scares that I had seen in some time, really, and even utilising elements from the other Resident Evil games, Jack obviously chasing and following you. But I want to talk about when he gets in the car with you and forces your foot down on the accelerator, and you kind of like trying to move, and obviously he wants to drive you straight towards the pillar of spikes, and you can't do shit about it. That shit was amazing. Obviously, spoilers, you will survive that and get out of the car, and it will burst into flames, and you think you're okay, and then he gets out on fire. And that shit is insane. Marguerite. Anything that fucking utilises spiders. So Marguerite and her transformation, the early portion of her transformation, not necessarily the big thing at the end, really, really works. And sticking with spiders then in general, spiders have always been I'm not an arachnophobe to that level. I very much dislike spiders in real life. To the point I would get my wife to deal with them rather than even deal with them myself. That kind of person. So in video games, there is always elements of spiders that creep me out. Not to a certain degree because I know it's fake. So like the Skyrim spiders or the Resident Evil spiders, never so much more.
Yeah.
However, I want to touch upon the spider from Limbo. The fucking spider from Limbo. The shadow of its legs. The fact that you can never fully see it because it's always slightly out of view because it's so fucking big. That thing. That fucking thing. Weirdly, it was... The scariest part of that is when you have to pull its legs off. And it's like, oh, that's disgusting. Yes. So Limbo spiders I wanted to mention as well.
Sounds freaky.
Yeah, Limbo's a great game, yeah. Really old game now as well, but it's up there, yeah. What else you got?
So again, sticking with the major franchises, but Dead Space.
Yep, of course, yeah, it's got loads, yeah.
I mean, I could pick any number from 1, 2, or 3. But I mean, this is overall throughout the entire franchise. I mean, just the necromorphs, the way they move, the way they just pop out every little gap. But especially, like for example, if you're doing hardcore mode, I think it's not actually number 3 actually, because I'm still trying to do it at the moment. Where like you can't be killed. If you get killed, you've got to restart the entire game. You've got to go through the entire playthrough without dying. Yeah,
it's a different level of fear, isn't it?
Yes, and even though I've learnt the entire game, it's just so scary. The fact that actually when they pop out,
well, it's legit survival horror, isn't it?
Yes,
it's exactly what we want.
And especially obviously everyone's favourite necromorph, the one who just doesn't die and constantly regrows his limbs, no matter how many times you cut them off. But yeah, just the way they can pop out, or you'll see one run past and you're thinking, oh, for God's sake, you see one get away like through a vent, and you know that he's going to pop up behind you in a second because they just burst out everywhere.
Isn't it interesting that when it comes to thinking of more modern games, that there aren't many that jump on the mind, considering there are a lot of horror games that are made, a lot of them. In fact, I've played loads over this little Halloween period now to get them up on the YouTube channel as well as that, but often they don't stay. So I'm trying to think of some that maybe had a decent effect on me. Even then, I'm still going backwards. So Outlast, probably my best experience of the whole camcorder, almost movie-like found footage thing of a game. I'm choosing out, even though Outlast 2 is obviously arguably a more stronger game overall, I want to talk about the first Outlast purely because of its setup of dropping you in this insane asylum with the inmates running free. And basically you've got no weapons, you've got this camcorder, night vision, all that. Was very, very, very unnerving. Obviously early on the game utilises some great scares. The fucking twins and seeing them at the end of the hallway. So Outlast all the way through really keeps you tense and uncomfortable. I'm trying to think, like, because I didn't really get into the Blair Witch game, didn't really get into that, so I can't really utilise that either as a sort of modern one. But that's certainly Outlast, I think, is up there as one of the war ones. I'm like, yep, when I thought of like what's a really good scare or scary experience in modern times, Outlast is probably going to be the one I jump to.
The problem now is that everyone's so immune now to horror.
There is a level of immunity when you watch horror and all stuff like that, which is why I said at the start of this, often I like the idea of how it made you feel. That's why I chose Little Inferno and stuff like that. If it made you feel tense and uncomfortable and frightened because of that.
Yeah, I mean, which is why my next one is a bit of like I said, it's not so much it's not really horror related, but basically it's the game which Carl loves, but popular is the beginning. Yeah. So it's just a moment, like for example, like you'll be attacking another tribe with a shaman. Your town, your village, or whatever is not protected. Yep. And then all you'll see in the corner of your little screen, you'll see the volcano sign, and you'll think, "Oh, for God, no!" So you go back to your village, and your entire work or whatever, and potentially it could be the end of your level where you have to restart it. So it's not much as a horror thing, but it's more like a major tense moment to try and save your entire village from being completely eradicated by lava and volcano.
Of course, yeah, I get the whole frightening aspect of that, because you can apply that to lots of things as well,
course, yeah.
where you're doing something incredibly difficult and you're sitting there with sweaty palms and, you know, like heart pounding.
Oh, of course, yeah, definitely, yeah.
Because of that experience. That's kind of like a different level. Mile High Club and Call of Duty 4, Modern Warfare, that kind of thing. Those are elements that kind of really, really get your heart racing. It's not necessarily terrifying in the normal convention.
Yeah.
The Friday the 13th multiplayer game. One of my favourite. I'm not a big fan of these multiplayer experiences where one person plays the villain and everybody else plays the heroes, and it's that kind of attack and hide thing. However, when Friday the 13th came out a couple of years ago, I'm like, I like those films. I like the character. Let me try this. And I actually put a ton of time into that game and had a lot of fun. Enough so that, you know, with the right group of people, you could survive, you could have fun. If you were Jason, you could have a lot of fun with that elements and too. But my God, did it nail the fear of you hiding in a room and the killer, whoever the killer was, coming in and looking for you, and maybe you're hiding in a place that's different to where they're attacking, but you're like, that shit was brilliant. Or they're just about to come to open the cupboard you're hiding in, and you quickly burst out and try and run away. That fucking nailed it. Absolutely brilliant. Easily one of my favourite of those. You know, I keep meaning to kind of try Dead by Daylight, which is another one of them and stuff like that. And I know there's an Evil Dead one out now as well that I might consider. But Friday the 13th, I probably sunk a good 30 or 40 hours into that experience. It was a lot of fun. But it is one of those reliant on a good multiplayer experience.
Yeah.
So if you haven't got that, and I can't imagine what the online world is like now. Imagine it's dropped off quite heavily, considering there's more variations on these than anything else. You got any more?
No.
Yeah, trying to rack my brains. I'm trying to think back to sort of the PlayStation 1 days as well. Sega Saturn.
Condemned.
Got one. Come to Condemned in a minute.
Yep.
Command and Conquer. And that fear, that shot of fear you got sent through you when you heard a nuclear weapon had been launched at you. And you were just like, oh, please don't be in the centre of my base destroying my goddamn harvesters or the main building thing. So much so that, you know, if you could trick the game into only ever attacking your defences by building a set of defences far away from your base. And it would always attack those first.
God,
but yeah, that fear was intense. Nuclear weapon, definitely.
Yeah, Kane's an idiot.
Yeah, he was an idiot. Condemned's a good shout, though.
Yeah,
the mannequins?
Yeah, the mannequins, you know, I mean, the overall feel of the
vibe,
game was very dark, you know, in a prison being attacked.
Grotty, yeah.
Yeah, definitely, yeah. And there's another one which no, I've got a game in my head which it was sort of like the Grudge style, but I can't remember what it's called.
The Grudge style?
Yeah, like the Grudge style.
The Grudge style?
Yeah, you know the creature from the Grudge.
Oh, Fear?
Yeah. Like
You're talking about the game Fear? With Alma and the little girl?
Was it Fear?
No, I guess not if you don't know that. Because Fear's got some good scares. Obviously, Fear 3 as well. Some good scares. But that's never one that I really spent a lot of time with. So I wouldn't necessarily go to that. What about, I'm trying to think of other consoles. What about even going back to the early days? Was there anything on like the Master System, Mega Drive, SNES? Those aren't really horror experiences, are they?
No.
You know, because I'm like, no, Manic Mansion was fun more than anything else. You know, other than difficult experiences, there's nothing frightening that I can think of on there. You go to the Sega Saturn, a lot of them we would have played on the PlayStation anyway.
Yeah.
It's probably PlayStation more than anything else, but then I don't think of like great horror experiences. I think, oh God, Nightmare Creatures. Nope, certainly not frightening.
Yeah, I mean,
Silent Hill we've already discussed. Resident Evil we've discussed.
It all depends, because obviously, I mean, we're obviously talking about like, moments that make you to be scared, or like, moments that obviously like, frustrated you, or it's hard because, you know.
Well, that's the idea. It literally is what comes to mind. The fact that we've already come up with quite a few off the top of our heads shows that those are the ones that kind of stick with you more than anything else.
I mean, would you class like Dino Crisis when you're first being chased by a T-Rex?
I mean, it's the tension, isn't it?
Or breaks through a window?
Well,
The first time?
if it's for you. For me personally, if I was to use Dino Crisis, I would probably say anytime you had to go through an area where you know you'd left loads of raptors. That was more tense than anything else. Being chased down a hallway by a raptor and trying to get to the laser grid so you can turn it on, but then you accidentally press the wrong one, so you turn it on in front of you, get bounced off it and get stuck with that raptor momentarily, taking damage. Dino Crisis has loads of moments like that. You know, we're talking about the T-Rex specifically. I'm trying to think, right, so... No, because the part in the heliport, you can just run around the planes. There's nothing about that. The part where it's smashing on the ledge.
The first ever time that happened.
Through the only thing I would say is they kind of ruin its impact by having you shown it.
It points to it, so you know something's going to happen.
Well, I mean the intro of the game shows you a T-Rex exists in it. So while it does do a good thing when it smashes through the window, it's... Imagine if you didn't even know a T-Rex was in the game. That you would have been like, I hope there's a T-Rex. Turns out there fucking is.
True.
That would have been cool. But yeah, Dino Crisis, because Dino Crisis is a horror game.
Yeah.
So it's got that tension and elements like that. Wouldn't necessarily say it had an effect on me to a degree, personally.
What about the snake in Resident Evil 1?
Nah, not for me.
In the attic bit where you had to get the crest, and then sometimes you could be unlucky and get trapped.
Not for me. No. I think they're... Not for me. Now I'm trying to think in Resident Evil 1 what I might utilise if I was to say, that scared me.
The giant spiders?
Nope. Anytime you heard a hunter launch. The noise it make and you realise it's jumped and you're just hoping that it's going to miss and not slash you down it because that shit is killer.
Killer.
Absolutely. Yeah. Can't really use much in Resident Evil 2 or 3. You've already mentioned Nemesis, which was a good choice. Resident Evil 4, it has moments, but because it's more action orientated, I wouldn't necessarily cause it a scary experience. And 5 and 6 can get in a bin. Yeah. For sure. Obviously, Silent Hill 2 and 3 have got loads. Loads of them that are iconic scares that I feel like it'd almost be lazy to go, oh, well, that freaked me out, or that freaked me out. Whatever freaked me out in Silent Hill 2 and 3 freaked you out as well. It's that kind of thing, you know?
Pretty much,
so what else is the most prominent scary stuff, I guess? There's some of the most prominent horror games that I can think of off the top of my head.
Yeah, so I'm racking my brain for like the PS1 and PS2 and can't touch the GameCube because it's all colourful games, so you can't really be scared of like Mario.
It depends if there's a horror moment in it more than anything else. But, you know, there isn't. This Mario. What else? Is that it? We're going to come... Yeah, I think we'll wrap it up there. I think we've talked enough about scary moments in gaming. That's some of ours that come into our mind. What are some of yours? Let us know in the comments.
Thank you very much for watching. If you liked what you saw, please help us out by giving us a thumbs up and hitting that subscribe button. If you really liked what you saw, consider donating to keep the website and channel running by buying us a coffee via our coffee page or picking up some merch from our Big Cartel store. You can check us out on gbhbl.com as well as via our social media, Facebook, Instagram and Twitter, as well as listen to our interviews via SoundCloud, Apple Music and Spotify. Just search for GBHBL. Games, horror and heavy metal. What else is life for?